Welcome into the Tottenham Depot. I am your host, Andrew. You can follow me at Astetka. You can follow us at Tottenham Depot. This is episode 276, and we've got some interesting and always exciting Tottenham Hotspur news to discuss, a couple of games to discuss as well. I've got Todd alongside. He is at TC_Kasho. TC, what's up, my friend?
Well, any day, brother, any day you can talk about a point at Anfield is a good fucking day. I think that's not a terrible place to start. I mean, any day that you can talk about your boy having a reason to pull out the yellow. Shout out some Kulusevski who hasn't been able to don this motherfucker yet this year. These kits suck, but Richarlison made them look like $1 million yesterday.
He sure as hell did. And yes, yesterday, as we are recording this Monday evening, just for reference, and we're doing that in part because Scott could join us, because Scott is back from a jaunt across the pond. He is at Scotchy Bird. Scott, what is going on, my friend?
It's good to be back, fellas. I was in Athens, I was in Istanbul, I was in Addis Ababa, which I need to spend some more time in, and I was in Johannesburg. And then after all that, I got stuck in Chicago for a while. So shout out to that wonderful city. And I'm back, ready to talk about.
You're back in the Midwest, in the icy plains of the Midwest, right?
If anyone was paying attention to the Weather Channel over the past few days, we got absolutely just slammed yesterday. Sucker punched, we would say, maybe by a late season blizzard. So it was snow was falling.
Blizzard.
There, it was like 60-mile-an-hour winds, no visibility at all. It was pretty wild, but yeah, we're in Iowa for sure.
We're in the grips of a heat wave out here in San Diego. It's 88 degrees today. It's tough.
Hey folks, Arizona guy here. It's going to be 100 Fahrenheit this week.
Well, I was -6 today.
They're having to move. They're having to push spring training games to the evening just to get out of the heat, because spring training is still wrapping up for baseball out here, and they're having to push games to the evening because it's going to be so damn hot so early. So, it's almost like the climate is changing or something, right? Man,
Almost.
Listen, guys, speaking of climate changing and going through storms, let's talk about Tottenham Hotspur Football Club. TC, I know you said what a good place to start, a point at Anfield, but I would actually like to go there next, because I want to start with what was the really bad from earlier in the week in the Champions League. Spurs shipped themselves off to Madrid like they did about 7 years ago for a Champions League final. This time it was a round of 16 tie against Atletico Madrid, and it obviously went about as poorly as it possibly could have. And I think that the whole story of this match is obviously going to center around the decision that Igor Tudor made to start Antonin Kinsky in goal over Vicario. And look, on the surface, I'm like, I think a lot of us, the game before this one, we were clamoring for something like that to happen. We all know that Vicario has struggled this season. We also all know that he is a much better shot stopper than Kinsky. And I also think that none of us could have ever considered or dreamed what would happen to Kinsky on that given night. 3 goals in the first 15 minutes, and he gets yanked. I guess I want to start just by asking you, Todd, what was your reaction not only to Kinsky starting, but to how that first 15 minutes played out and then his hook?
Well, for anybody that's listened to this podcast for a minute or two, they noted that as we were coming into this match, I looked at you, Andrew, in the face, and I said, okay, anytime you go play those guys, it's going to be a slog. And they're going to take every advantage that they possibly can. And Simeone is the type of guy that is no stranger to the dark arts. And, dude, I don't know if they didn't mow that grass. I don't know if they put baby oil on it instead of water before the match. But whatever it was, Tottenham was not prepared.
It was a slip and slide out there.
The slip and slide that they played on. And the most egregious individual expression of that would be the yakety sax moments for Tony Kinsky that happened in the first 15 minutes of that match. Like it was Trippier passing the ball into his own net past Lloris bad. Like it was Eric Dyer kicking the ball in between Lloris's legs at Anfield to lose bad. Like it was For the amount of nonsensical things that Tottenham Hotspur fans have seen happen over the years, that one was up there. As a keeper, you never want to let in 3 goals. You never want to let in 3 goals within 15 minutes. As a professional footballer, you never want to get the hook within the first 20 minutes of the match. Now, I don't blame Tudor for hooking him. To be fair, the reason why we're still in this tie is because he hooked it. Like, Antonin Kinsky was dead on his feet in that fight. And he could have stood there and took 3 or 4 more shots, but eventually he was going to get waved off. And Igor Tudor threw in the towel, and we punted, and we regrouped, and we got a couple of goals back. And now, my friend Andrew, Jan Oblak is suspended for this match, or injured for this match, whatever it is. He's out for this match. And they got some guy named Musso that is a giant question mark for them in goal. And they have to come to the lane where we actually mow our grass properly. So you say what you want to say, buddy, but I think that there's more to this tie than you're letting on.
We're gonna touch on that in a minute. Scott, I want to get your reaction to the hook from Tudor to Kinsky, because in the moment I thought to myself, that's a bad move. What are you doing? I know there was a lot of punditry afterwards as well. Like, you've just ruined this kid's career. I don't really believe that. I think that if you can't take a few lumps in your career, then you were never going to make it. And I think Kinsky has the talent to make it. He has the talent, the mentality to get over this. But the reaction, I thought, from folks who blame Tudor, not only blame Tudor, but were kind of in on Tudor for not even addressing Kinsky as he walked down the tunnel, which in the moment I thought was really cold. And then I heard Tudor's explanation for it, and I guess I got it to an extent, but the whole situation was really ugly, and I'm curious as to your reaction to it all.
In order to answer that, I have to start by saying the decision to start him was an awful decision. And I think there was a lot of about time Vicario's been dropped, Vicario's been shit before this match. And I'm not like calling anyone out who felt that way, but for me, Vicario hasn't been any worse than the rest of everything that's in front of him, right? And I just thought it was very strange to decide that Vicario was one of the primary issues, and to start Kinsky in a match of that magnitude, right, was just a strange decision to me. Hooking him, I think at first I heard Peter Schmeichel in the post game, essentially, probably one of the greatest voices to be able to speak, on what had happened to young Antonin Kinsky. And Peter essentially said,
class.
Yeah, I love Peter Schmeichel. He's very, very good at what he does now. Maybe better in the media than he was on the pitch, which is saying something, right? But he basically came out and said, paraphrasing hard here, right? But to hook him in that moment after you already made the poor decision to start him is a failure by the manager. You have to at least wait to halftime to do that, because you have probably ruined this young man's career, right? And I did understand that to some degree, but leaning towards what Todd said, Tudor has to make the hard decisions in the moment for the club, right? That is a hard decision to do that to Antonin Kinsky. It's not done easily, right? But Tudor has to make the hard decisions. He also has to be able to put his hands up and say, yeah, fucked up this one. Maybe let me put Vicario back on the pitch and hold his hands up too, right? So he did what he had to do.
You can't fall prey, Scott.
No,
you can't fall prey to the sunken cost fallacy.
Mm-hmm. 100%. You absolutely cannot. And like you said, it keeps us in the tie. Vicario made some big saves later in the match, right? And ultimately, I understand the goalkeeper position. It is always going to be different than the rest of the rest of their 10 teammates. It will always be seen in a different light. But at the same time, in a match of that magnitude, if my 6 misplays a touch and turns the ball over 3 times in a row, and we get broken on 3 times in a row, and again in a game of that magnitude, the 6 is probably getting hooked, right? So, or if the striker fluffs 3 wide open nets in that magnitude, they're probably getting hooked. So, poor performances at that level come with consequences. It was a very poor performance. Tie it all back to say, what the fuck was Tudor doing starting Antonin Kinsky? That was the first domino to fall for me.
Right, and I would be the first to. I would probably be the first to say you need to get Vicario out of there. But at the same time, I totally agree with you. You cannot start Antonin Kinsky in that match.
Oh, you fence-sitting son of a gun!
I'm not fence-sitting. Here's the thing: I think we have a problem at goalkeeper that is not solvable by someone on the roster, and that's the thing. That's been my stance all along. I think Antonin Kinsky can be a good, viable backup right now, and can maybe be one for the future. He is still young. I'm as everyone knows, and especially based on what I said last week, I'm so done with Vicario. Like, he needs to be gone this summer, and that does not mean that Antonin Kinsky needs to step in and take his place. I think there needs to be a new goalkeeper in this team.
I couldn't agree more. I think what we learned, like, people forget, this isn't Antonin Kinsky's, like, first high-pressure match for Tottenham Hotspur. Like, that guy played at Anfield away last year in the Cup. That guy played against, was at the Emirates that guy played. Like, you gotta look at this and go, this kid's been in there before, and he's fucked up. He's made mistakes.
A lot of them.
So we've already spent the last 3 years trying to get the most out of Vicario that we possibly could. And as we've talked about ad nauseum on this podcast, he's great at the one thing that he does, which is reaction saves, and he's sus at absolutely everything else. My issue with Tony Kinsky is I think what we learned in this situation is that he's Loris Karius. And we need to cut bait, and we need to sell his ass this summer and start all over again. And that's fine. Loris Karius has had a fine career. I think he's in Germany, right? He's a German guy, right? Like, that's great. Good for him. But the days that Antonin Kinsky could consider himself a number one goalkeeper for a club the magnitude of Tottenham Hotspur, in my opinion, are over.
Well, over for now?
No, over as in he may end up as a backup that gets thrust into duty somewhere down the line. But I think what he needs to do is go to a lower level club where he's going to play week in and week out and make his mistakes and apply his craft and get good enough to where he can overcome those challenges and not crumble in the way that we've seen him crumble. Dude, he went for a punch at the Emirates and straight swing and a miss, brother. Like, it was like we're talking Gazaniga status.
Are we talking about Kinsky still, or are we talking about Vicario now?
Yeah. Yes and yes.
Okay. This is the grander.
This is my entire. Like, I'm agreeing with you,
Spurs
Andrew,
have
in the
a
sense
massive
that
problem
we need to burn this motherfucker down.
And it also has to be said about Kinsky. He comes in, he starts at Anfield because he has to, right? We all know that. He's 20 years old, 21 at the time, probably one of the two, right? He's young, and he understands he's starting. He flies to England to start in this massive match, right? There's such an opportunity for him to really take a free hit at Anfield, right? Is all that match is, and he does well. Beyond that, mistake after mistake after mistake. But I think a lot of that's because, again, when your trajectory was like his, you were playing for the national team at 20, 21 years old, right? Anyone that age on the planet thinks they're pretty fucking cool at that point in time, right? And then you come to England and you have a great game against Liverpool and you think you're even cooler than you did before you got there, right? And then you don't play again for a really long time. That's mentally very challenging for someone of his age. And I also think that Kinsky was brought in as an asset. He was not intended to be a backup goalkeeper or actually have to play, but we realized Vicario wasn't good enough and we kept him in the club because the only way that you buy someone who's 20 or 21 years old and is a goalkeeper is because you think they're an asset for the future. It's a long-term thing, right? He's still probably 4 years away from being ready to start regular footballing matches from a goalkeeper's perspective. So I think this is all just kind of a clusterfuck.
Spurs obviously don't have that luxury to wait around.
100%.
Like, that's the problem.
100%.
They can't just wait around for him to be good.
And to bring it all back to what you said earlier, this is all just a clusterfuck of us fumbling the ball and buying Vicario, who was not as dependable as we thought he was, and here we are, right? So again, we have to sort it out. Vicario has to go. Kinsky can then go, and we can reset.
So before we talk about the Liverpool match, let's get into what we think about this tie now, because let's be honest, after Spurs fell down 3-0 in the first 15 minutes, they actually played Atletico Madrid to a 2-2 draw after that. And the first leg ends up 5-2, heading back to White Hart Lane this Wednesday for the second leg. Listen, listeners will know I told Todd last week on this very pod, I don't really care about this Champions League tie. It means nothing to me. I get that if you were to advance to the quarterfinals, it would mean more prize money. I personally don't see Spurs going and winning the Champions League this year, and I don't think any of the three of us would disagree on that. We don't really think that Spurs can or will win the Champions League. So for me, my sole focus has been on the relegation battle, as I think it is for most people. But now that Spurs have gone to Madrid and suffered the 5-2 defeat, I'm even more out on this Wednesday's second leg. You're already down 3 goals in the tie, as opposed to last week when the tie was level beforehand. I'm out. I'm good with it. It's not the end of the world to me. I'm kind of over it. And I know Todd feels way differently. So before I go to him, Scott, where are you at with this? Like, are you going to be emotionally invested come Wednesday that Spurs can maybe get back into this thing? Or are you just going to watch it to watch it?
Maybe I bridge the gap nicely between you two because I definitely don't feel like it's over. Like I think there's a chance, but I also will not be emotionally invested into whatever happens. So, yeah, like I said, maybe right in the middle of you two. But there's every reason to think Spurs can get 3 goals in this match. Can we keep a clean sheet? Is the question for me. And if we can keep a clean sheet, then I think there's a chance. If they score 1, I think we're in big trouble. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Tudor wants to set us up. Again, insofar as us needing to keep a clean sheet, but also score 3 goals. It's challenging to do both things. So yeah, we'll see.
TC?
Huh? What?
Give it to me.
Why do we watch football, boys? We watch football for the possibility of something great happening. As long as you're in the Champions League, something great can possibly happen. Ask Tottenham Hotspur about that night in Amsterdam. Should ask Liverpool, ask Liverpool about that night in Barcelona from that same fucking season.
Yeah.
Crazier things have happened than a team bitten by some dark art tactics of a slip and slide field, giving up 3 goals, taking the match back to their home pitch and showing some fight. Tottenham, you forget, Andrew, when was the last time we lost in Europe at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium? And this is what I'm getting at, brother. Is it like, if you're going to have a conversation about what do we have to play for left in the season, this game coming up, like, yes, Nottingham Forest is a bigger game for us this season than this match. But you said it yourself, Andrew, in the lead up to this, we've got 5 potential returnees coming back for the match. So you don't have to worry, if you're Igor Tudor, about sitting anybody, about resting folks. You can go all out at home in the all-white kits under the lights at the Lane for this Champions League tie, because Spurs are European pedigree club. And when you have European pedigree, man, you show up on events like this in a way that not a lot of clubs can. So, damn the record. If anything, I'm buoyed by the performance that I saw out of Tudor's club at the weekend at Anfield, and feel like we absolutely have a chance in this tie. Do I think we will win? No, I'm not an idiot. But I think there's a chance.
So for reference, Spurs this season have a 3-0 win. That was the opener, the Premier League opener over Burnley. They went on to win at West Ham 3-0. They also beat Doncaster in the League Cup 3-0. Again, I'm just saying the names. That's who was on the schedule. They beat Everton away 3-0. They beat Copenhagen at home 3-0 in the 4-0 in the Champions League, which would obviously that would win the tie if you can win 4-0. And then they also beat Slavia Prague at home 3-0. Those are the only results that had a 3 or 4 goal victory margin for Spurs this season. And
okay. 2 of those were in the Champions League. What are we talking about?
Well, right, and they were against Prague and Copenhagen, and now you're facing Atletico Madrid. I hear you. I get it.
It's not Real Madrid, bro.
No, but it's Atletico Madrid. It's still.
We beat Atletico Madrid in the Champions League before. Like, we beat them in Europe before. Like, I'm not Like, I don't look at like, yes, there's Griezmann, but he's 42 years old. Like, it's not the same Atletico Madrid that it used to be. There's some players there. Don't get me wrong. The Alvarez is a baller. I get that, but like, there's nobody on that team that I'm like, oh shit, it's not that way anymore.
Dude, they've been
and to go ahead, Scott.
no, I was gonna say the Spanish press has been beating them up all year too. They have not been terribly good. So yeah, there's every reason to think. I mean, I would say that we want to probably approach this with a 4-4-2 again, right? And I think if you throw, I was thinking about this as we're talking, right? I think I would actually play Van de Ven at left back. I think this is a whole nother conversation, but I think Van de Ven has shown that he might not be as astute when it comes to defending in his own box. I think he looked really good under Ange because, and someone else in another chat mentioned this, and I think it's a good shout, that Van de Ven looked really, really good under Ange because that system relied on his primary qualities of like speed and power and pace, right? But maybe not quite
Tracking back.
exactly, but maybe not quite the defender in and around the box as we would like. So I'd put him at left back. I'd let him get forward. We all know he can drive with the ball. I put Colomboani in front of him to drive off of the left. I'd put Pedro Porro on the right side, right, either at right back or even, right mid. Probably not right mid, right? But and we just get crosses into the box with Richie and Dom up top and fuck around and see what we can do, right? So there's every reason to think that it's possible.
So the problem is you're not going to have Richie because he's suspended after picking up the yellow in the first leg. And TC, you did mention the injuries stuff. We are not 100% sure that Christian Romero is going to be back for this match.
Yeah.
He obviously missed the Liverpool game at Anfield with a concussion, as did João Palhinha. There is a belief that Romero and Palhinha can return for the weekend against Nottingham Forest, which is a match that we're certainly going to discuss here. But you mentioned it. Van de Ven will be back as well. The Spurs are starting to get some of the bodies back, so there is a little bit of that belief. But Scott, you brought up a 4-4-2, and I think that's the perfect spot here to transition into discussing what happened at Anfield on Sunday, because Spurs did in fact get a massive, and I'm going to underline and bold and italicize that word, massive point. And I know everyone's going to say, okay, you got a point, calm down. Remember that Spurs have gone how long? I mean, they still don't have a win in calendar year 2026 in the Premier League, but they have gone this long run without doing anything. And to get this point, especially in the way that it came with a 90th minute Richarlison goal, it felt like a little bit of a weight lifted. I'm going to be completely honest. I messaged both of you guys after the game. I have not celebrated a goal in that fashion in quite some time. You can ask my wife. I kind of did it loudly but also quietly because I was trying not to be a nuisance to her in the other room. But I was jacked. I was extremely jacked when this goal went in. Take me through what you guys felt in this match, because obviously we're not going to sit here and praise Spurs for how they played. They weren't great, but they were better. And going back to the formation, I do think that simply playing a 4-4-2 instead of trying to play a back three really, really helped this club.
I will say though, like the switch to a 4-4-2 is not some like tactical masterstroke by Igor. It's actually saying like they can't figure my shit out, so let's backtrack and play a formation that everyone played until they were 12, or even older, right? So, but it worked really well. I completely agree with you. I also have to point out, if any other team in the league is in a relegation battle and they get a point at Anfield, the media is throwing them a fucking massive party. Like, the greatest point that's ever been recovered in the history of the Premier League, blah, blah, blah. And just because it's Spurs, we don't hear anything about that. Let me make it very clear to people who are listening. We are a shit team in the middle of a fucking relegation battle, and a point at Anfield is so fucking huge. I could not be happier.
I want to put a quick exclamation point on your point there, Scott, because what people will say too is, well, Liverpool are down this year. Liverpool are having a very disappointing season as defending champions. And let me remind folks that had they held on to all 3 points yesterday in this match and not given that goal up late, they would be in the top 4 right now. And instead they sit behind Aston Villa by 2 points.
And it's Anfield.
That was massive for them as much as it was massive for us. Maybe even a little bit more on their end, because that could cost them dearly in the long run, just like it could help us massively.
100%. And regardless of whether or not they're down or up or whatever, I really think that in Europe's top 5 leagues, I'm trying to think of a more hostile environment for an away fan. Not like hostile in the sense of danger, but like hostile in the sense of I'm going to have a really fucking shitty time because this stadium is a nuts place to go play at. I really can't think of another atmosphere in Europe.
Like Dortmund?
Yeah, maybe Dortmund. That came to mind. Like, I can't think of anywhere in Italy. Like, the San Siro is like kind of a tourist trap these days, right? I don't think any stadium in Spain is terribly,
Spurs fans would tell you St. James Park is that way, but
yeah, I mean maybe. But yeah, everyone understands my point. It's Anfield. It's a really, really tough place to go play. If you're not Liverpool, right? And kudos to the team, and kudos we haven't even said it yet, but relegation battle Richarlison, RBR, that dude is a monster, and I love him.
And listen, man, I've been saying, I mean, what did I say to you, Todd, a couple of weeks ago when Richarlison was not playing? I'm like, why is he not on the pitch? It makes no sense.
Yeah.
He's going to scratch, claw, bite, and try to get a goal every minute he's on the pitch. He's going to be trying to go forward and trying to score a goal. And look, the other thing we got to say also in this goal, Randall Colomwani had a massive part in this goal. He obviously got the assist on it, but just the way that he was able to play the bounce of the ball and the hold up play and get the right. That's all this was. It was one of those gritty, like, I'm going to try and hold this ball up and get the bounce off of the defender and make this happen kind of thing. And then he obviously played the perfect pass that was an obvious one, but he executed it.
I also,
well,
go ahead, Todd.
Yeah, go ahead, Scott.
No, go ahead. I just got an RKM
No.
point, but I know we've talked a lot about Randall Colomwani. The dude has played in a World Cup final for France, right? He's not a bad footballer. He was really good at Juve last year. Sometimes I ask myself, like, is Randall Colomwani bad, or does he just play for a really fucking bad team? And I think maybe both things can be true, right, when it comes to form.
Yeah, I think it can be a little bit of both of those.
Yeah. But I do think that there's a really good football in there, and I think we see moments of that, and this was definitely one of them, and it came at a really good time.
Well, I'm glad that everybody gave Randall Colomwani his love. I appreciate that. I've talked rabid amounts of shit about that guy.
Yeah, I was gonna just take care of that and let you say what you want to say, because I know you're not a fan, and I'm frankly not a fan either. I wanted to credit him for the move to get Richarlison the ball there because it was important, obviously.
Well, I want to say a couple of things. One, that was one of the better performances that we've seen from him. Two, whatever Randall Colomwani is, he plays best under Igor Tudor, at least most effectively under Igor Tudor. And I will live and die by that. If you look at the goal productions that he's had as that man, as his manager, it's the best statistically in his career. So, for whatever, as we mentioned, right, when Tudor came in, like, whatever Randall Colomwani is, Tudor's going to get a song out of him, and that's the best that we can ask for at Tottenham. He absolutely rode Van Dijk like a donkey. And the fact that he was able to do that in the way that he did that after Van Dijk had a questionable call, look the other way on Richie in the box. Dude, you can't say enough good things about how Randall Colomwani controlled that ball, controlled Van Dijk, was able to make the perfect pass. And shout to Richie for not fucking it up. Like, that was one of the ugliest goals I think I might have ever seen. He scuffed the hell out of that ball. But it got where it needed to go, and ultimately it's one of those things where, like, he didn't hit it hard, and I think that worked to his benefit as the keeper was coming over to try to save it. So, whatever works, man. Relegation battle Richarlison is whether Everton, whether Watford, whether Spurs, like, Relegation battle to Richarlison is up for a fight.
Dude.
And you know who else is up for a fight? I want to give a shout to is Souza, however you want to say his name.
Yeah.
That guy, the club that he was at in Brazil, he fought through relegation multiple times. Like, he knows what's going on, and he is not afraid to have a pop, and I'm about it.
So this was weird too, because in relation to the formation part of things, when Spurs came out on the pitch, I was like, why is Souza all the way over on the right side? And it turns out he was not playing a left wing back position or a left back position at all. He was basically playing like a right midfielder.
Yeah, he was playing right midfield. It was crazy.
It was like, okay, I was very confused. But to your point, TC, like, he's obviously very young and unpolished, but there's a raw talent there that I'm like, okay, I see it. I see something there that I think can be. And again, what have we been bitching about now for 2+ years? This club is only signing 19-year-olds, mostly Brazilian 19-year-olds or South American 19-year-olds who are ones for the future. And here we are, like, yeah, there's maybe one for the future there, but like that's not what I want in my relegation battle. But it's also part of the reason that we are in a relegation battle is that we're playing all of these guys at this time. But credit to him at the same time, like I'm not going to say he looked like a Premier League player, but he looked like he was trying to find out how to be a Premier League player, which is all you can ask for at this point.
Yep. Shout out to Souza. So
I want to talk. I want to talk about Solbazai's goal because, again, at the risk of making this an entire podcast just shitting on our goalkeepers, that ball's got to be stopped. That ball cannot get in the net. Yeah. Like, my goodness, what are we doing? Which to me is, I know you can't like butterfly effect these things, but to me, that's the real shame of this, because that comes in the 18th minute and then you're playing from behind the whole game. Whereas if you can continue to pester them and not allow them to score, because let's be honest, Spurs they allowed chances after that, but they kept the ball out of the net after that. And if you would have been able to nick a 1-0 at Anfield, had that ball not gone in, which again, I'm going to repeat, that ball should not have gone in. The goalkeeper should have stopped that ball. I don't know what we're doing right now. We're probably doing the podcast with our shirts off and throwing a party if we won 1-0 at Anfield. Let's be honest. So maybe we praise Vicario for allowing us to keep our shirts on, but I'm going to just another slap on the wrist to him, because what are we doing?
But also, like,
is that a different? Like, am I wrong there? Am I out of line?
No, but also 10 minutes later, he, had a reaction save where he dove out of his skin and got kept the ball off the post and kept it out. So, I mean, like, and that's the thing with Vicario is that obviously we need to upgrade. We all agree on that, but you got to take his good with his bad, otherwise you're going to go crazy.
Dude, yeah, Tim Howard was recapping the match at Anfield, and he pointed out exactly that goal has to be saved. That free kick has to be saved. But then he's like, and then Tim Howard directly said, and then Vicario comes around and makes just like incredible, just out of this world save. He was raving about the save. And he said Vicario is a very good goalkeeper, right? So it's just, those little moments are frustrating. They say to be successful in the Premier League, you need to have a goalkeeper that can win you like 10 to 16 points, right? And making that save would be 2 of those points that you're talking about when you're talking about a goalkeeper and really being able to make a difference, right? So those are the things that have to be cleaned up. But as Todd, did earlier, you have to point out the wonderful save that he makes.
I think the only other thing to point out from this match was just the lack of options for Spurs on the bench. They had 2 goalkeepers on the bench. They had 2 senior outfield players in Xavi and I'm missing the other one off the top of my head now. It was and Colomwani. Xavi and Colomwani were the 2 senior outfield players. And then we of course saw debuts from Callum Sessi and James Rouswell. Cool for them, but also like this is again part of the reason that this club is where it is right now, is that they are bringing these guys off the bench who have never seen the pitch in a Premier League match because of the injury woes, and especially for this match, the suspension woes. Like these are the problems that this club has with depth that we're having to bring these players on. And it's nice to see them make their debut, but you'd like to not have that be in the middle of a relegation battle at Anfield.
Yeah. I think that this speaks to the lack of development within this club. I mean, we've had Like Olacise has played for us before. This was his Premier League debut, but he's
Correct.
played for us before. Where the hell is are we expecting to bring these players through? We spend all this money on youth development, and then all of a sudden it looks like all this fruit dies on the vine, or they're mired in mediocrity at Oxford United or whatever, right?
Right.
Like where's this talent? Where is the talent? And it's like when you have guys like Olacise, who did not look out of his depth at all. I thought he looked very comfortable on the day.
I would agree with that.
I would say that the failure is not in playing these guys. The failure is in not playing these guys earlier, so that when we do have a crisis involving injuries or whatever, that these guys are not more seasoned and able to step in where we need them. Like, I would not be upset if we saw Olacise against Madrid or Olacise against Forest.
Yeah, but here's the thing though. In order, like, if you want to be a Premier League team and integrate youth into the team, you have to have like a very stable, talented, like, I don't know, 12 to 16 guys that consistently play. Like, look at the way Arsenal's doing it with Dalman. Look at the way City has always done it, right? They're very established, very talented squad, and then you just make room for these guys. If Olacise was getting minutes with like the Poch team of 17, 18, right? He would be doing really well. He would be coming on and making an impact and looking really good because he's just fitting into a really well-oiled machine. And the problem is not that we don't play these guys or, we have to play them in a relegation battle. The problem is that we're so far away from a well-oiled machine in which you're able to do those things. And that's why these guys suffer, I think.
The point was obviously huge, guys, and it was made even more just enormous by the fact that other results around the weekend had really not broken Spurs' way. Everyone else was picking up points, and Spurs come around late Sunday and are at Anfield, and everyone's thinking Spurs are going to be in the relegation zone by the end of this 90 minutes. Well, of course, by the end of the 90 minutes, Richarlison has that goal in the back of the net, and Spurs have a point of their own. The bottom 7 teams in the Premier League all drew this week. Everyone picked up at least that 1 point. So even Wolves today got themselves a point. But West Ham getting the point, Nottingham Forest getting their point, we get our point. Leeds even ahead of us got their point. So no movement. Spurs still sitting 16th. They're still 1 point ahead of both Forest and United and West Ham United for 17th and 18th. And now we turn our attention. I know you guys are turning your attention to Wednesday, and we're thinking about Madrid, but we're also thinking, of course, about Sunday, because Nottingham Forest do visit the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on Sunday for what is, I don't know, the biggest match in that stadium's history since the Champions League knockouts there back in 2019, probably. Am I wrong about that? I mean, this is a massive.
No, that's fair.
This is a massive match. And I don't think, I think the build-up for it is going to be treated that way, and I hope that the atmosphere is there for it. This week, Leeds will host Brentford. Of course, Spurs and Forest play one another, and West Ham has to go to Aston Villa. So maybe you get a little bit of help there, but that's what lies ahead for the Premier League weekend. When you look at Forest and you look at this match that Spurs are going to play, I guess the only question is, how are we feeling? Does this point at Anfield give them a little bit of a trampoline into that match, or is that going to be dependent on what happens Wednesday night against Atletico Madrid? I'm curious as to how you guys are feeling about the relegation battle of it all, because again, this is going to be something we're going to have to talk about every podcast until we're either getting dropped or we're safe.
We have relegation battle with Charleston, Scotty. I'm buoyed by that fact. And the fact that Igor Tudor figured out what the best formation is to play our team to where we didn't look 6s and 7s at the back, I feel extremely confident. But yeah, you got it.
Oh man.
But again, if we go out there and absolutely lay an egg against Madrid, it's gonna, we're gonna be going into the weekend on a sour note. However, if we do what I think we're going to do, what we've proven that we can do in Europe, which is hold serve at home, if not, step on some people's necks, Copenhagen, Slavia Prague. We could be riding the high of quarterfinal Champions League berth right on into an unsuspecting victim in Forest. I don't know, man. I don't know. It will really depend on how we escape the midweek match from an injury standpoint. I think that makes a huge difference. You mentioned we got a bunch of people coming back, but like at this time of the year, dude, I feel like we lose somebody every match almost. And so it's hard to say. It's hard to say.
Somehow Forrest had a great manager for them in Nuno, and then hired a really poor manager for them in Ange, and then had a great manager for them in Sean Dyche, and then fired him and brought in Vitor Pereira. So that's one thing that we very much have going for us is they've been absolutely dog shit since Sean Dyche left. We appreciate their owner's decision making in this case, right? But I feel like this one could really go either way. Like both teams have been absolute dog shit as of late. Both teams are good, but again have been absolute dog shit. But anyway, so it's really, 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 really hard to say what's going to happen. But as Todd said, we've got RBR on our side, and that always tips the scales in your favors.
Facts.
Well, and I mean, to your point, Forrest got a point at City in 2 weeks ago, and then were able to draw Fulham, who I think are, well, they had been. By the way, Fulham, I've always kind of had a little bit of a soft spot for Fulham. Fuck Fulham, man.
Fuck Fulham.
Fuck them. They beat our ass, and then they lost to West Ham and drew Forest. They are not helpful at all in this relegation battle. We said it 3 weeks ago. Fulham are going to have a real hand in this thing because they were playing all three of the relegation contenders in 3 consecutive weeks. Fuck Fulham, man. I don't like them now. I used to have like I said, small little soft spot for them. I think it's just the stadium. I
cool
really want to visit that. I really want to visit
stadium.
Craven Cottage. Yeah, you've been, I know.
Craven Cottage.
I really want to go. I think it's just that vibe. But man, I was really pissed the other morning watching Fulham just completely shit the bed against Forest, and now we have to turn around and face them. I'm about as nervous as I have been because honestly, you lose this match, even if you only get a point in this match, it could really do some damage. That whole home form, it needs to show up for this one. And again, I know we want it to show up against Madrid as well. They really need to show up against Nottingham Forest on Sunday. And here's the other kicker. You know what happens after the Forest match, right? It's international break time, guys. So if you lose that match going into international break and have to sit on that, and maybe even by that point you're sitting in the drop zone for those couple of weeks during the international break, what are the vibes going to be like if that happens?
Dude, this makes me
Well, I mean, how are the vibes going to get worse? How are the vibes going to get worse? We had to listen to Jamie Carragher talk all the shit the entire match until the Richarlison equalizer. We had to listen to fucking Gary Neville, who's like the preeminent voice in football punditry, say they would be good for the Premier League if Tottenham go down. Like, all of these people can get fucked. All of these people can get fucked, Andrew. And my point in even saying that is to simply say the vibes would be dog shit, and no one wants that to happen. So we have to get a point in this match, at least from Forest. This is one of the ones that I had circled on my schedule to win, because these are the ones you gotta win at this time. So
we'll see if it happens. Before we talk Tottenham Hotspur women, I do want to mention this article because you brought it up to us, Todd. Article in the Telegraph from earlier this week from our good friend Matt Law, who
kick rocks,
claims that Tottenham CEO Vinay Venkatesham is basically pointing out that Spurs may not be in as good a financial place as the public may believe, and a lot of that has to do with the former chairman Daniel Levy. And highlighted in this article are a number of reasons why Venkatesham is now pointing the finger to his predecessor and explaining that Levy is much to blame as to why Spurs have fallen into the state that they have fallen into, and also claiming that, you know, that financial fair play thing that everyone believed that Spurs were free and clear of may not be the case, and that Spurs may need to do some hardcore selling of players this summer just to get financially viable once again. I have plenty to say on this, but I'm really curious as to what you think, TC, because we've all been kind of I would say lukewarm at best when it comes to Venkatesham since his appointment.
You've been lukewarm at best. I've never ever appreciated what that guy does. That guy does great things for the women's side of the house, and shout to him for his efforts on that front. But as far as running the Tottenham Hotspur men's side, he's doing so like an Arsenal fan. I don't want to hear your bullshit. Obviously, he's saying what he has to say about Levy, because Levy's fucking gone. He's not going to look at the press and be like, yeah, dude, my current employers are fucking idiots, and they will not spend money the way that they need to for this thing to make a product, a profit and make us viable on the field. He's not going to say that. He's going to look at the situation and go, well, actually, Daniel kind of left us in the lurch here. And he didn't say Daniel. He said, I inherited a situation that was less than ideal, and there was some financial fair play issues, and all of it looks like backpedal, backpedal, backpedal. We've got a bunch of sponsors that are going to back out on us if we go down. And I feel like a lot of this was seeding the media market with the standard Spurs hand-wringing over dollars, and you can miss me with it. Stay up and all of this and make the quarterfinals of the Champions League, and all of this goes away.
Yeah. I honestly don't have much to add beyond what Todd said. I think
that's fair.
Yeah, I think the club needs to get its shit together, and I'm just frankly tired of seeing this kind of stuff. Like, just win matches, quit telling us what you're doing all the time.
Yeah. To your point on the women's team too, Todd, I don't even know. We haven't even seen Vinay Venkatesham take any ownership or credit for the successes of Spurs Women this year, which I'm fine with, because I don't know how much of a hand he actually had in it. Certainly the hiring of Martin Ho has been a great positive, and he can take credit for that if he wants. I haven't seen him want to do so or parade it around. All he's really discussed is the men's side of things and how they are working to improve and ready to spend money. I mean, hell, he said prior to January that they were ready to spend a lot of money, and then said at the end of January that they didn't want to be rash. They'll spend money in the summer. And now he's saying, well, we may actually have to sell a bunch of players. I just don't know where the bullshit ends with this guy at this point. And, it's just, it feels like one lie after another.
So I think what makes this situation worse is the combination of him and Langa is just untenable at this stage of the game. One of them, at least, in my opinion, both, but at least one of them needs to get the fuck out of my club. And, from there, we'll figure it out. He hasn't taken credit, but he did spend considerably in the January window on the women's side. And it's true. Made a significant impact. So
and you say spend significantly for the women's. I mean, they brought in a bunch of players. They didn't spend significantly, but they brought in a bunch of players.
A bunch of talented players.
Which is good.
That were, it's the type of players that they brought in. It's not just prospects like we're doing on the men's side. They're bringing in like viable, first team players. So,
well, and I guess my only hesitation and my only question, I guess, is what if this guy's telling the truth right now, and what if this whole debacle, like let's say Spurs do stay up, let's say they have Premier League life next season. But that also means that Johan Lange and Vinay Venkatesham are staying around, and they are the captains of this ship. And he is going into a summer where he's saying they need to sell a bunch of people. One, I'll agree with the point that Spurs need to sell a bunch of players, because there are a bunch of players that don't belong in this club. That part of it, that part of the house, I can agree with. But for the reasons that he's saying, the reasons being financial fair play and the reasons being they need to become financially viable, if all that's going down this summer, I don't think we're going to be having a fun time next season. I don't think this is going to be a happy podcast next season. I think it's going to be much of the same if this kind of talk continues. And that's where I'm so confused, because it feels like this guy is just shrinking into a turtle shell of his own making. And I don't love it.
I think you're giving that guy so much credit. I think all of this boils down to the fact that we haven't changed anything except for the figurehead that's saying the shit we don't want to hear for Enoch. Like, Let me
And that
introduce
may
you to
be.
the new boss, same as the old boss. There was always an excuse under Levy why we couldn't spend money. There was always a reason why, oh well, this and that, and there was always it was the stadium. It was we were trying to set up on financial fair play. We didn't generate the Champions League money that we were trying to. There was always a reason. And what I'm saying is that this looks to me as though it's just another reason continuing. We heard a month ago that if Spurs go down, it's going to be catastrophic, and they may spend significantly if Spurs are able to stay up. And it's like it's all of these qualifying statements that basically says we're not going to do shit except for collect our money.
I don't love it. It doesn't sound good. None of it sounds very fun. Scott?
Are we starting to see that Levy may not have been as big of this like linchpin of a problem as he was always made out to be, right?
Well,
To Todd's point.
I think to what
both
Todd's
things can be
saying-
true, brother.
Yeah, I think to what Todd's saying is like it goes higher than Levy, but Levy at the same time never put this club in a precarious position. And to your point, Todd, too, you said like there was always an excuse not to spend money. That's the biggest misconception, and I'm not saying that you're putting that out there. This club has spent money. They've spent money terribly.
Poorly.
So badly.
Poorly.
And part of the problem with, you can spend money terribly when you're a big club. You can do that. But you have to be able to spend more money when you spend it terribly. And that's the part that
Chelsea
they have
does
not been
that.
able to do. Chelsea does that. Everybody else does that. We have not done that. We have not made up for the mistakes financially that we made in the first place. It requires a lot more money. I'm not saying it's an easy thing to do, but it's money that this club has, or at least we've been led to believe this club has.
Well, it's just the biggest thing that I can look at and say that we didn't do effectively well, and is kind of put a spotlight on this issue, is that we didn't replace like-for-like players when the hole was created.
Yeah.
And we haven't for about a decade, and we're still playing catch-up from not properly replacing Desk.
Well, and the other big problem, too, is that since the departure of Mauricio Pochettino, they haven't really had a football operation because they were being led by one manager to the next, and trying to put an actual scouting football operation in place with a director of football that's been his chop change over the last 7 years that the manager has been. So when you don't have any stability in the front office, you're not going to have stability on the touchline, and therefore you're not going to have stability on the pitch. Like it all trickles down from one to the next thing. And that's been, for my money, the biggest issue that I've seen on this side of the house. And something's got to change. Like it's not like I said, it's not an issue of not spending enough money. It's not spending your money in the proper way. And then when you don't spend it in the proper way, fixing that problem with more money, which is what a big club is supposed to do. That's the advantage you have.
Well,
the money
and
you gotta
again,
spend it properly.
And again, like over Daniel Levy's tenure, over Enoch's tenure of ownership, players have quintupled in cost. So like what a large number used to be is not a large number when purchasing footballers anymore. Like a 50 million player 10 years ago is not a 50 million player today. It's not remotely close.
And Spurs broke football with the Bale transfer of like 89 million.
And these are the things these are the things that I'm over here saying, is that like we haven't kept up with inflation when it comes to the way that we've been purchasing players.
Yeah.
One of the things that Daniel Levy was really good at was finding a deal. And I think the perfect example of that deal is James Madison. And I say that because Madison on his day is one of the top 5, top 3, maybe 10s in the Premier League. When he's on his day, Madison has all that ability in the world. And have we seen it unlocked fully at Spurs? No, but we've seen glimpses. But there were days when he was at Leicester where he just took over matches. He just took over matches. He's a big part of the reason why they won the FA Cup that year. And so you look at that and you go, well, how the hell did we get James Madison? Well, we got James Madison because Leicester got relegated, so we got a deal. And James Madison has an injury history that allowed us to pay him less money weekly and give him more money and incentives. And because James Madison has not hit the majority of those incentives, we've had a really good deal of having James Madison on our team. If James Madison were to gone to any other squad in the top 6, top 4 at that time, they would have paid him approximately $50,000 to $80,000 pounds more a week, and he would have had significantly less incentives. Now, the truth is that the record would probably have been the same in terms of his injuries because he's an injury-prone player, which is why we fucking bought him in the first place, because we were able to get him for cheap. And so you look at throughout the years, the other one that really stands out to me is when we were in for Bruno Fernandes, and instead we brought Gedson Fernandes. And you're looking at it going, these are not the same player, brother. These are not the same player. And so
not.
When you look at a team that's trying to overcome the lowest revenue to wage spend in the Premier League, and everybody's around scratching their head going, I wonder how come this isn't working, and we keep buying 19-year-old kids that we hope are going to pan out. It's no surprise to me, Andrew, that we find ourselves in this situation yet again.
We will see how that goes. I do want to touch on Spurs Women before we get out of here, gentlemen. Kind of a dud coming out of the international break. Just a bad result for Spurs Women yesterday at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. A 2-1 defeat to Everton. I don't know what
the Gobset goal was good.
The Gobset goal was good. This was a weird lineup for Martin Ho. He started Lena Gunning-Williams out on the right. There was no Beth England in the lineup. There was no Drew Spence in the lineup, despite her being eligible coming off of the suspension for the red card. Both of those players did come on as subs later in the match. It was a strange one for sure. Spurs were down pretty early on in the 13th minute, go down and don't equalize. Gobset did not equalize until the 76th minute. And in that final 15, you thought, okay, Spurs can at least sustain a point here, but we're trying to go for it. Just couldn't find anything going. And then, Everton get the winner a mere 6 or 8 minutes after Spurs equalized, and that was all she wrote. I don't really know what to make of this one, Scott. I know I know you watched this one on delay without knowing the result. I'm curious to know, one, if you were able to keep the result a mystery before you watched it, and just what your takeaway was, because this one, it didn't feel like Spurs ever really got a footing in this match, which I felt was really, really strange.
Yeah, I honestly have to say I still haven't watched the match. I missed it. It was
okay, my fault.
No, you're good. You're good. It was the boy's birthday this weekend, and I was not focused on soccer. But yeah, I do share your frustration, we will say, in coming out of the international break with a dud. I think that one kills some momentum.
That's a really bad podcasting by me, because I thought you had seen the match. And, I asked you a question about it without you having seen it.
No,
so that's
fine.
on
No
me.
worries. That's on me for not watching.
But TC, you did
it was a rotational squad, and we played like a rotational squad that hadn't played together a lot before. So it wasn't surprising to see.
It was a WSL goal for Gopset, which was nice. Again, I thought this was still just a very, very strange one. The club is still, of course, missing Toka Koga, Claire Hunt, and Maika Hamano. They are all still at the Asian Cup. All three of them will be in the semifinal over the coming days on opposite sides. Of course, Koga and Hamano with Japan and Claire Hunt with Australia on opposite sides of the bracket. So a possibility that the three of them are all in a final against one another. So we'll see if that comes to fruition, but it'll still be a little bit longer until they are back from the international break because of the Asian Cup going on. But other than that, like I said, this one just felt like Spurs were still on international break. It did not pass the vibe check for me whatsoever, and it does not get any easier for Spurs this week, as they will have to travel to face the WSL leaders in Manchester City. That match to be played this Sunday. That match is this Saturday. So Spurs women and men actually playing on different days of the week this weekend, which is a nice bonus. But Spurs women up at Manchester City this Saturday. We'll see if they can maybe scrounge a point there. That would be really nice. But it's not going to be easy. And I just asked them to not let Bunny Shaw score, because that's always what's happening against us. That's always going to be the case. Unless you guys have anything else, I think we'll move to wrap here. I think that's going to do it. Is there anything else? Any other shots we needed to get up before we get out of here tonight? I'm seeing nodding heads. No, I love it. Let's call it a podcast then. That will do it for this episode of the Tottenham Depot. I would love it. Love it if you all would head to youtube.com/Tottenham Depot and watch the podcast there, but also hit the subscribe button, because then every time we post a new pod, it will drop right into your YouTube subscriptions, and you can see us there. Go ahead and hit that thumbs up too. That helps to spread the word about the show. You can also leave us a rating and review on your podcast app of choice. You can follow Scott at ScottGBird. You can follow Todd at TC_Kashow, and you can follow me at Astetka. Most importantly, follow us at Tottenham Depot on all the socials. That is where you will find the pod each and every week. We will talk to you next week. This has been the Tottenham Depot podcast. As always, come on, you Spurs.